I'll never forget the night I sat at my parents' dining table, my voice trembling as I whispered, "I lost my job. I can't pay rent. I just need $5,000 to survive until I find work again." For a long, suffocating silence, no one spoke. The clinking of forks on porcelain was the only answer. Then my father leaned back, his eyes cold, and said flatly, "We can't help you, Emily. You're on your own." My mother looked away. My brother smirked. In that moment, something inside me shattered. Or maybe it awakened. Because what they didn't know was that, just days before, I had won $52 million. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 33 years old, and until recently, I worked as an office assistant at a small insurance company in Denver. Life was ordinary, sometimes painfully so. My paycheck covered rent, utilities, and the occasional takeout meal, but never much more. Vacations were out of reach, new clothes had to wait for sales, and emergency fund was a phrase that lived only in motivational podcasts I never had time to finish. Still, I managed. I told myself I was content, even if there was always a quiet ache in my chest whenever I watched others live the kind of life I could only dream about. Then came that freezing February morning. The kind where your breath turns to frost before it leaves your lips and your fingers ache just from turning a key in the lock. I shuffled into the office kitchen, poured myself a mug of stale coffee, and sat down at my desk. In my purse was a lottery ticket I'd bought on a whim at a gas station the night before. I scratched it absent-mindedly, expecting nothing more than the usual disappointment. But when the final number lined up, my heart nearly stopped. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and checked again. $52 million. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake. My hands shook so badly that I spilled coffee all over a stack of client files. My first reaction wasn't joy, it was terror. The kind of raw, paralyzing fear that makes your chest seize up. I didn't scream. I didn't run outside. I didn't post on social media or call a friend. Instead, I called a lawyer. His name was Martin Keller, a sharp, no-nonsense man with salt and pepper hair and a reputation for protecting lottery winners from greedy relatives and opportunists. We met in his office, and he laid out a plan. "Emily," he said, "your safest move is to create a trust fund, keep your identity hidden, and act as if nothing in your life has changed. The moment people know you have this money, you'll see their true colors, and trust me, most of them won't be pretty." I followed his advice, but even as I signed the papers, something inside me remained unsettled. For years, I had been the dependable one in my family. I had helped my younger brother cover rent when he couldn't hold a job. I had babysat my sister's children for free while she went on weekend getaways. I had even bought groceries for my parents when they claimed money was tight, though I often suspected their tight months still included dinner at nice restaurants. I had always been there for them. The question gnawed at me. Would they be there for me? That's when the idea came to me, a test. Quiet, simple, and revealing. I would tell them I had lost my job. I would say I was broke, desperate, and in need of a loan, just $5,000 to survive until I got back on my feet. And then I would see who truly loved me, and who only loved what I could give them. The responses were like knives, each sharper than the last. I started with my parents. If anyone would help, I thought, it would be them. I called my mother, Margaret, first. She listened in silence as I told her I had been laid off, that I was struggling, that I just needed a small loan to stay afloat. When I finished, she let out a dramatic sigh. "Emily," she said, her voice heavy with annoyance, "we're close to retirement. Do you think we can just hand out money whenever you ask? Your father and I need to think about our future." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. My father, Charles, took the phone next. His tone was even colder. "You should have saved better, Emily. Everyone knows you've always been careless with money. This is your mess, not ours. Don't come running to us every time you can't manage your life." I wanted to scream. When had I ever asked them for help before? All those times I bought groceries, covered bills, filled in gaps they never admitted to, but the words caught in my chest. Next, I turned to my brother, Ryan. He was the one I'd bailed out of debt. Twice. I paid his overdue rent, kept his car from being repossessed, even gave him cash when he couldn't make ends meet. Surely he would remember. But when I asked, his laugh crackled through the phone like static. 5 grand? I don't have that kind of cash lying around. Maybe sell your car. Or better yet, get a roommate. I'm not your safety net. His words stung. I had been his safety net more times than I could count. Then came my sister, Angela, the golden child. Her Instagram overflowed with pictures of her newly remodeled kitchen, the expensive vacations she and her husband flaunted online. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd offer something. Emily, I can't, she said flatly. We have expenses. Kids, the mortgage, new furniture. It's just not realistic. Besides, $5,000 is a lot of money. She didn't even offer $20. Not even sympathy. Just excuses. I tried extended family too. Aunt Sylvia and Uncle Peter, people who once begged me for help when their mortgage was on the line. I had scraped together what I could back then, easing their burden. Now, when I asked for a loan, "Sorry, Emily," Sylvia said briskly. "Things are tight right now. You'll figure something out." The words replayed in my mind like a broken record. You'll figure something out. But then, there was Aunt Helen, my mother's older sister, a widow who lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment filled with second-hand furniture and stacks of library books. When I told her my story, she didn't hesitate. She didn't sigh or scold or make excuses. She reached for her worn purse and pressed a handful of bills into my hands. "Sweetheart," she whispered, her eyes brimming with worry, "this is all I can spare. $2,500. I wish it were more. I just want you to be okay." Her kindness nearly broke me. She had so little, yet she gave more than anyone else. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the truth burned itself into me. My family's love wasn't unconditional. It was transactional. They wanted what I could provide, not me. Without my help, I was worthless to them. And that realization cut deeper than any knife. At first, I told myself to let it go, to swallow the bitterness and accept the truth about my family. Maybe I could live quietly, with my winnings hidden away, and simply build a new life for myself. But every time I replayed their faces, indifferent, smug, dismissive, the anger returned sharper than before. They hadn't just refused me, they had revealed how little I meant to them once I stopped being useful. And why should they continue their comfortable lives, basking in self-righteous pride, when I held the power to turn their lies inside out? That was when the idea began to form. Not a sudden, reckless impulse, but a slow, deliberate strategy. If they had tested my worth, then I would test theirs. And this time, the truth wouldn't just whisper, it would roar. Step 1. Maintain the disguise. I would continue living as if nothing had changed. To them, I'd still be Emily Carter, the struggling office assistant who scraped by paycheck to paycheck. I told Martin, my lawyer, that secrecy was my armor. The less they know, he advised, the more control you'll have. He was right. So I kept my old apartment, wore the same faded sweaters, and let them believe I was still broke. Step 2. Reward the one who had shown me real love, Aunt Helen. The memory of her trembling hands pressing those bills into mine still brought tears to my eyes. She had nothing, yet she gave without hesitation. Within weeks, I arranged for a cozy little house in her name, fully paid off, stocked her pantry, and created an account she could draw from monthly. She cried when she saw it, saying she didn't understand how I managed it. I simply kissed her cheek and told her, "You believed in me when no one else did. That's all that matters." Step 3. Wait for the stage to set itself. Every summer, my parents hosted a grand family reunion at their lake house. They loved parading our family name, speaking about unity, tradition, and sacrifice, words they had long since abandoned in practice. This year, though, would be different. This year, I would let them reveal themselves before I pulled the curtain down. I spent nights sketching out every detail, what to say, how to say it, the perfect moment to strike. The plan wasn't about vengeance for vengeance's sake. It was about unveiling the truth they hid behind smiles and toasts. They had chosen greed over love, appearances over sincerity. And soon, they would see the cost of those choices. I didn't want them to suffer physically, no. But humiliation, the kind that made them confront their own cruelty, that was justice. And justice, I decided, was long overdue. So when the invitations arrived in the mail, I circled the date in red ink. The countdown had begun. The reunion was everything I expected. Grand chandeliers glowing like false stars, tables weighed down with food no one truly enjoyed, and laughter that rang hollow, like crystal ready to shatter. My parents thrived in this spectacle, reveling in the illusion of perfection. They didn't see me slip quietly through the doors, dressed in the same plain navy dress I'd worn for years. To them, I was invisible, and that was exactly how I wanted it. Dinner passed in a blur of empty pleasantries and thinly veiled bragging. My father, with his commanding voice, stood as dessert was served. He raised his glass, the room falling obediently silent. "Family," he declared, "is everything. We stick together, no matter what." The hypocrisy nearly made me choke. I stared into my untouched wine, then pushed back my chair. My legs trembled at first, but my voice was steady when I spoke. "Interesting words, Dad," I said, loud enough for every corner of the room. "Because when I needed help, not one of you was there, except Aunt Helen." The silence was instant, heavy. A few cousins shifted uncomfortably. My mother's lips tightened. My sister, with her usual cruelty, smirked. "Are we really doing this, Emily?" she drawled, as though my pain were a game. "Yes," I answered firmly. "Because while you turned your backs on me, I was hiding something. I wasn't broke. I wasn't desperate. I had just won $52 million. Gasps rippled across the room. A fork clattered to the floor. My father's face hardened. My mother's complexion drained pale. Their perfect mask was cracking. But I wasn't finished. Slowly, I drew a neat stack of envelopes from my bag. My hands no longer shook. They were steady, fueled by years of swallowed humiliation. "These," I said, handing the first to Aunt Helen, "are copies of checks. This one secures a new home for her, debts cleared, and a monthly allowance for life." Aunt Helen's hands trembled as she opened it, her eyes widening in disbelief. She whispered my name, tears welling. I smiled softly at her, then turned to the others. "And the rest?" I tossed the unopened envelopes onto the table. "Empty. You showed me who you were when I had nothing, and now that I have everything, you get nothing." The room erupted. My brother-in-law Ryan stood abruptly, face red with rage. "You're lying. This is some pathetic stunt." I didn't flinch. "Am I?" At that cue, the doors opened, and in walked Martin, my lawyer, briefcase in hand. He spoke with professional calm, laying documents on the table for all to see. "These are the legal records of Miss Carter's trust, her winnings, and her recent transactions. Everything she said is verifiable." The thunderclap landed. My family's faces twisted in disbelief and fury. My father muttered curses under his breath. My mother shook her head, whispering, "How could you humiliate us like this?" But I wasn't done. "You want to know the real twist?" I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp as glass. "Just days ago, I paid off several of your debts, mortgages, credit cards, loans. Anonymously. I wanted to see what it felt like to save you, even after you abandoned me. And then, I paused, savoring the silence. I canceled the payments. The collection notices will arrive any day now. You'll finally see what it means to be left with nothing. The shock was palpable. My sister's smirk vanished, replaced with panic. My father's hand tightened around his glass until it nearly cracked. Their empire of lies was crumbling, and for once, I didn't feel small. I stood taller than I ever had before. Consider this your lesson, I said, my voice calm, almost gentle. Family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty, kindness, and sacrifice. And you failed that test. As I turned to leave, the room buzzed with chaos, anger, fear, disbelief. But I felt light, free. For the first time, I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I was the one who set the terms. And this time, they would never forget it. The dining room erupted into chaos. Voices overlapped, desperate and venomous. My mother clutched her pearls as if the revelation had strangled her. Emily, darling, you can't mean this. We're family. Families forgive. My father's face turned crimson. Ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you. His words stung, though not for the reasons he intended. Everything they'd done for me? I searched my memory and found only conditions, obligations, and disdain. Ryan jumped to his feet, spittle flying as he shouted, "You set us up! You manipulated us!" His hands trembled, not with righteous anger, but with panic. He was calculating the unpaid bills piling on his kitchen counter, the car loan he couldn't cover without me. Angela's voice quivered, her Instagram-perfect mask slipping. "You don't understand. I have kids, Emily. You can't just abandon us." But I remembered the moment I'd called her, voice shaking, begging for help, and how quickly she dismissed me without even pretending to care. I raised my hand, silencing them. "No. You don't get to rewrite the past. When I needed you, each of you showed me the truth. Love wasn't the reason you kept me around. Money was. And now that I finally have it, you'll never touch a dime." The room was electric with rage and disbelief. My lawyer Martin cleared his throat, pulling out a folder. "Everything Miss Carter has said is legally binding. The trust is airtight. No contest will succeed." His steady tone extinguished whatever hope they still clung to. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. The twist of the knife. And in case you're wondering why creditors will be knocking on your doors soon, it's because I gave you one last chance. I paid off your debts anonymously, and then revoked the payments before they cleared. Any second now, your real priorities will come crashing down. Ryan cursed, knocking over a wine glass. Angela gasped, fumbling for her phone, as if she could stop the tidal wave of reality with a single call. My mother buried her face in her hands, sobbing about ruined reputations, while my father sank into his chair, silent for the first time in my life. I turned to Aunt Helen, who sat stunned, eyes wide. Reaching into my bag, I handed her a set of keys. "This is for you. A cottage near the lake, with a garden and shelves for your books. You're the only one who acted out of love, and love deserves to be rewarded." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "Oh, Emily, you didn't have to." "But I wanted to," I said softly. In the weeks that followed, the consequences unfolded like clockwork. My parents' once envied social standing crumbled under gossip, neighbors whispering about how they'd abandoned their daughter in her hour of need. Ryan was evicted. Angela's perfect life dissolved into collection notices and online ridicule. And Aunt Helen? She thrived. Her garden bloomed, her smile returned, and she finally lived without fear of the next bill. I visited often, no longer weighed down by resentment but lifted by the clarity of truth. Family, I realized, isn't defined by blood. It's defined by loyalty, sacrifice, and love freely given. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. 6 months later, My life bore no resemblance to what it once was. I moved into a quiet home filled with light, where mornings were no longer weighed down by dread but lifted by purpose. With part of the inheritance, I started a foundation for struggling single women because I remembered vividly what it felt like to be alone, begging for help that never came. Every application I approved, every woman I supported, felt like a victory over the shadows of my past. And here's the truth. My story isn't only about revenge. Revenge was just the spark, the necessary flame to cut through years of silence and neglect. But beyond the fire was something deeper: dignity, self-respect. The decision to stand tall and say, I will no longer let anyone define my worth. Because justice doesn't always arrive neatly wrapped in court verdicts or legal battles. Sometimes it arrives when masks are torn off, when the people who once belittled you are forced to face their reflection in the mirror of consequence. And sometimes justice means building a life so fulfilling, so free, that their cruelty no longer has the power to touch you. So let me leave you with this. If justice doesn't come with a touch of revenge, does it still taste as sweet? Or is the satisfaction of watching truth prevail part of what makes healing real? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take.